The ballroom hummed with the soft murmur of Charleston's elite, a symphony of hushed conversations and the clinking of champagne flutes. I stood on the stage, the bright lights of the charity gala blinding me to the faces in the crowd, all except for his. Ethan. He stood in the front row, his handsome face frozen in a mask of panic, a desperate, silent plea in his eyes. He had no idea what was coming. Beside him, Jessica, my best friend, looked on with a tight, nervous smile, her hand still holding his. My perfect life, my perfect husband, my perfect friend. All lies, meticulously crafted and flawlessly executed. They had played me for a fool. For 2 years, I had walked a path of lies, but tonight, the path ended. The projector screen behind me flickered to life. The first image was a financial spreadsheet, filled with numbers that meant nothing to this glittering crowd, but everything to the man standing before me. The second image was a simple photo of a family, a perfect lie. The third, a video clip, a small, undeniable piece of a hidden life. I felt the cold, familiar satisfaction of a plan coming to fruition. My heart hammered with a mixture of rage and cold, sharp revenge. I took a deep breath, my voice echoing through the silent room. "My name is Sarah Jones," I began, my voice clear and steady. "And this is the truth about my husband and my best friend." Part 1. The perfect family. 2 years earlier, my life was a watercolor painting of perfect serenity. The scent of sweetgrass and magnolia blossoms hung in the humid air of Charleston, a city as charming and beautiful as the secrets it held. My husband, Ethan Jones, was everything I had ever wanted. My high school sweetheart, a successful man, and the very foundation of my world. Our home, a classic Charleston single house with a sprawling porch and a meticulously manicured garden, was our sanctuary. Our life was a dream. The dream was shared with Jessica Taylor, my best friend since kindergarten. She was like a sister to me, my confidant, and my closest ally. We had shared everything, secrets, laughter, and an unbreakable bond forged over a lifetime. She was always there, a constant presence in my life, a part of my family as much as Ethan was. Ethan's younger brother, Ryan, was the only discordant note in our harmony. He was the black sheep of the family, successful but restless, with a simmering resentment towards Ethan that I never quite understood. He was often on the fringes of our life, watching from the shadows with a quiet, observant intensity. One Friday afternoon, as Ethan was getting ready for a charity gala, he was in a rush. "Sarah, love, can you grab my suit jacket from the cleaners? My wallet's in there." I smiled, grabbing his jacket from the hook by the door. As I reached into the breast pocket, my fingers brushed against something hard and metallic. It wasn't his wallet. I pulled out a small ornate key, one I had never seen before. It was a simple key, but its design was unfamiliar, almost antique. A small, neatly folded note was tucked with it. My heart, which had been so light a moment ago, now began to beat a little faster. A wave of unease washed over me. I opened the note. It was a series of coordinates, handwritten in a familiar, elegant script that I knew belonged to Ethan. Below the coordinates, a single phrase was scrawled, "The usual spot. See you soon? Jay." The note wasn't from a client. It was personal. My mind raced, trying to put the pieces together, the handwriting, the familiar key, and the single, enigmatic initial. A terrible suspicion, a whisper of a thought began to take shape in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. Without a word to Ethan, who was now rushing out the door, I grabbed my keys and got in my car. I put the coordinates into my phone, and the GPS led me to a part of the city I rarely visited. A quiet, unassuming residential street with old, well-kept apartment buildings. The address matched. I got out of the car, the old key cold and heavy in my hand. I walked up the worn stairs to the 3rd floor, my heart pounding in my ears. I slowly, carefully, slid the key into the lock. The lock clicked, and the door swung open with a soft creak. The apartment was dark, except for the dim light from a hallway. I saw 2 figures silhouetted against the light. 2 people, locked in an embrace I knew belonged only to lovers, and I knew them both. Part 2. Broken vows. I turned from the door, my feet carrying me back down the stairs as if they belonged to someone else. The world outside the apartment building was the same as it had been minutes ago. Cars hummed past, street lights cast a soft glow on the pavement, and the air was thick with the scent of jasmine. But my world was shattered. The perfect life I had so carefully built was a house of cards, and a single key had just sent it all tumbling down. He was got into my car and sat there, the engine silent, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The heartbreak came first, a sharp physical pain in my chest. Then a cold, hard rage began to settle in. There were no tears. Tears were for victims, and I refused to be one. They had played me for a fool, a supporting character in their pathetic little drama. I was done with that role. If they wanted a stage, I would give them a performance. But it wouldn't be a tragedy. It would be a reckoning. I drove home, and the sight of my beautiful, peaceful house filled me not with comfort, but with a searing fury. It was all a lie. The front porch swing, the rose bushes I had so carefully tended, the wedding photos on the mantel, every single detail was a part of their deception. I walked past Ethan's sleeping form in the bed, my heart as cold and hard as stone. I didn't hate him. I didn't have the energy for it. All I felt was a chilling clarity. The next morning, while he was in the shower, I took his phone. My heart hammered with a mixture of revulsion and purpose. I went into his photo app and, after a few failed attempts, found the hidden folder. The pictures confirmed my worst fears, and then some. They were laughing on a beach I had always wanted to visit. They were smiling on a night out at a restaurant he had told me he was working late at. The betrayal wasn't a recent lapse. It was a deep, long-standing affair, a silent parallel life they had been living right under my nose. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't even shocked. I was simply filled with a new, dangerous resolve. I would not yell. I would not cry. I would not throw his clothes on the front lawn. That was an emotional, messy revenge. My revenge would be cold, calculated, and thorough. I would hit them where it mattered most: their reputations, their livelihoods, and their wallets. Their success was built on our family business, a seemingly legitimate real estate firm that had grown at an improbable rate. I knew the basics of the business, but I had always trusted Ethan to handle the specifics. Now, I saw the files on his laptop with a new, suspicious eye. I started digging. I went through old tax documents, client files, and invoices. It was tedious, complex work, but a pattern began to emerge. The numbers didn't add up. The profits were too high, the expenses too low. I realized that the perfect life Ethan had built was built on something far more sinister than an affair. It was built on lies, money laundering, and illegal deals. I was in the middle of cross-referencing a series of shell companies when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered cautiously, my mind still processing the damning information on my screen. "Sarah," a familiar voice said, low and steady, "I know what you're doing. And I know you found what you were looking for. I'm coming to see you." It was Ryan. Part 3. The Revenge Plan. The front doorbell rang with a crisp, polite chime that felt out of place with the storm brewing inside me. I stared at my phone, the call with Ryan's low voice still echoing in my mind. He was here. I took a deep, steadying breath, composed my face, and walked to the door. Ryan stood on my porch, looking impeccably casual in a dark blazer, his hands tucked into his pockets. He was Ethan's younger brother, but where Ethan was all easy charm, Ryan had a quiet intensity that was unsettling. His eyes were dark, intelligent, and they seemed to see far more than he let on. "I know you're not going to let me in," he said, his voice calm. "But we both know this conversation can't happen out here." I hesitated, but a cold certainty had settled within me. I was past fear. I was past hesitation. I opened the door and let him in. He walked to the living room and surveyed the space, his gaze lingering on the wedding photo on the mantelpiece. "The perfect life," he murmured, a hint of something bitter in his voice. He was always so good at making it look so effortless. I crossed my arms. "What do you want, Ryan? And how do you know what I found?" He turned to face me, his expression grave. "I've been watching my brother for a long time, Sarah. I've always known he was playing a game, but I never had the proof. When you started looking into things, I saw a chance. You see, I'm not here for him. I'm here for us. I want to help you take him down." My heart pounded with a new kind of suspicion. "Why? Why would you help me?" He let out a short, hollow laugh. "Because I've always been the black sheep, the failure. Ethan got everything, the business, the money, the perfect wife. He never worked for it. He lied for it. His lies have always overshadowed my hard work. He built this empire on deceit, and I'm tired of living in his shadow. My revenge isn't for you, Sarah. It's for me." Our interests, for now, are perfectly aligned. His honesty was shocking, but it was also the first true thing I'd heard since this nightmare began. My cold, calculated revenge now had an ally. A risky one, to be sure, but a powerful one. We spent the next hour mapping out a plan. Ryan had the key to Ethan's private study, a place even I wasn't allowed to enter. It was where Ethan kept the physical evidence, the original contracts, the bank statements from offshore accounts, everything they couldn't risk having on a computer. We needed to get in there and photograph every document. 2 nights later, under the cover of a thunderstorm, we put our plan into action. We entered the house through the back door and crept down to Ethan's study. The lock clicked open with a satisfying finality. Inside, the room was a treasure trove of damning evidence. We worked in silent coordination, the flash of my phone camera illuminating page after page of fraudulent dealings, money laundering, and illegal transactions. This was the proof I needed, not only to end my marriage, but to destroy him. As I took the last photo, Ryan stood up and closed the laptop I'd been working on. He turned to me, his expression unreadable. "It's time to go," he said, his voice flat. I nodded, feeling a rush of triumph. We had done it. We had the evidence. But as I reached for my phone, Ryan's hand shot out and stopped me. He didn't say a word, but his grip was firm. He picked up my phone and slid it into his pocket. My heart sank. A cold, chilling dread washed over me. I looked at him, and the quiet intensity in his eyes was no longer just resentment. It was power. He had used me to get what he wanted. "Our deal was simple, Sarah," he said, his voice a low, final whisper. "I help you get the truth. Now I have it. And with this, I can finish the game my brother started. Alone." Part 4. Paradise Lost. The key to the study clicked in the lock, and the sound echoed like a gunshot in the silent house. Ryan, with my phone clutched in his hand, stood on the other side of the heavy oak door. His last words, cold and final, replayed in my mind. He hadn't just used me to get the evidence. He had just sealed me inside a trap. I was on my own. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. Ethan and Jessica could return at any moment. I had to get out. I ran to the study's windows, but they were bolted shut. I tried to pry them open, my fingers scraping against the cold metal, but they wouldn't budge. I was trapped, but then I remembered. Before I had gone to Ryan, I had a contingency plan. I knew he was an opportunist. I had to be one step ahead. I frantically searched the room for a small leather-bound book on Ethan's shelf. I found it, a book of classic poems. I flipped through the pages to the one I'd marked Ozymandias. Tucked inside was a second smaller USB drive. I had copied all the data to it before I had ever called Ryan. This was my trump card. This was my insurance. This was my freedom. I found the small alarm button under Ethan's desk and set it off. The house alarm screamed to life, a deafening siren that would bring the security company and eventually the police. I didn't care. I opened the door just as the first car pulled into the driveway. It wasn't Ethan. It was my ride, my ticket to the final act of my revenge. The ballroom was a sea of glittering gowns and tuxedo jackets, the air thick with the scent of perfume and expensive liquor. This was my moment. I walked through the doors, holding my head high. I felt every eye in the room turn to me, including Ethan's and Jessica's. They looked like a perfect couple, their faces radiating a familiar, effortless charm. They were laughing, unaware that their world was about to shatter. I walked straight to the stage, the small USB drive tucked in my palm. The announcer called me to the podium to deliver my speech on behalf of the foundation. I took the microphone and the crowd hushed. I glanced out over the sea of faces, searching for one in particular. I found him in the back, a small, knowing smile on his face. Ryan. He looked at me, a silent challenge in his eyes, smug and confident. He believed he had won. "Good evening," I began, my voice clear and steady. "I'm sure you all know me as Sarah Jones, a loving wife and a partner in a successful business. Tonight, I'm here to talk about loyalty and trust. 2 words my husband, Ethan, and my best friend, Jessica, have taught me a great deal about." A few people in the audience chuckled, thinking it was a joke. Ethan smiled, a relieved, warm smile. Jessica raised a glass. They thought I was going to talk about their perfect life. They thought they were safe. I felt a cold rage swell inside me, and the smile never left my face. I looked directly at Ethan. "It's true what they say," I continued. "Love is blind. I was so blind. I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. I didn't see the secret trips. I didn't see the hidden apartment. I didn't see the love affair between my husband and my best friend, Jessica Taylor." A gasp rippled through the room. The smiles on Ethan and Jessica's faces vanished instantly, replaced by utter shock and horror. Ethan's face drained of color, and Jessica looked like a deer caught in headlights. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. But I wasn't finished. I pulled the projector remote from my pocket and pointed it at the screen behind me. "You all know that our company is very successful. But what you don't know is the secret behind that success. It's not hard work. It's not business acumen. It's the multi-million-dollar money laundering scheme my husband has been running." A collective murmur spread through the crowd. This was no longer just a personal drama. It was a crime. Ethan began to move toward the stage, his eyes wide with a desperate, pleading look. But I already had the second act ready. I pulled out my laptop and inserted my decoy USB drive. The screen behind me filled with charts and spreadsheets, all of them filled with undeniable proof of the financial fraud. Ethan stopped dead in his tracks. His eyes darted to Ryan at the back of the room, who now looked furious and betrayed. Ryan was supposed to have had that evidence, but he didn't. I had won. I pulled out my phone. "Hello, Detective Martinez? It's Sarah Jones. The entire Jones family is here at the Royal Society Charity Gala. I think you're going to want to make a few arrests." The crowd erupted into chaos. Ethan looked at me, his eyes now filled with pure hatred. The perfect lie had just ended. Part 5. New Life. The Royal Society Charity Gala erupted into a scene of pure, unadulterated chaos. The murmur of the crowd became a roar of shock and outrage. Flashing blue and red lights cut through the elegant ballroom, and police officers, led by Detective Martinez, swarmed the room. Ethan, his face a mask of furious disbelief, was arrested on the spot, his hands cuffed behind his back. Jessica was right beside him, sobbing and screaming, her reputation and her perfect life destroyed in a single public moment. I watched them go, a cold, empty feeling settling over me. There was no joy, no triumph, just a hollow sense of finality. As they were led away, Ethan's eyes, filled with a cold, pure hatred, found mine. I simply looked away. My perfect lie was over, and so was he. I saw Ryan in the back, trying to slip away unnoticed. He was just a step too slow. Detective Martinez's gaze landed on him, and a knowing smile touched his lips. "Mr. Jones," the detective said, his voice calm but authoritative. "We have a few questions for you about those financials." Ryan's face went white. The ambitious snake had played his last hand, and he had lost everything. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, detectives, and reporters. The scandal was front-page news. My life was laid bare for the world to see. The perfect facade I had so carefully constructed torn to shreds. The divorce was messy, public, and swift. I sold the house, the car, everything that tied me to my old life. I felt no sorrow, only a profound sense of liberation. I finally understood that the perfect life I had so desperately clung to was nothing but a beautiful cage. My marriage to Ethan, my friendship with Jessica, it was all a trap. The perfect life was a lie, a carefully constructed illusion to hide a much darker truth. But in that ruin, I found something far more valuable than a perfect marriage or a life of luxury. I found my own strength. I found myself. Today, I live a different life. I moved out of Charleston, leaving the ghosts of my past behind. I started my own small consulting firm, helping people protect their finances from fraud. My clients aren't a secret. My work is honest. My life is authentic. It's not perfect. It's real. I don't regret a single thing. Not the pain, not the betrayal, not the moment I decided to go for revenge. It was all a necessary part of the journey. The perfect lie was over, but my story had only just begun. I had lost everything, but in the end, I had gained my freedom, and that was worth more than any price. Epilogue. The most important lesson from this story is that true freedom is more valuable than a perfect illusion. The story of Sarah and Ethan is not just about a single act of betrayal. It's about the bigger lie of living a life that looks perfect on the outside but is built on deceit and hidden truths. Sarah's perfect life was a comfortable prison, and she only found real freedom after she destroyed that illusion. Her journey teaches us that the comfort of a lie can be tempting, but ultimately, an authentic life built on truth and courage is the greatest reward. Even though she lost everything, she gained the most valuable thing of all, herself. He was